Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive viewing screen in his command ship. The blue and green planet called Earth spun slowly in the darkness of space. For 3 years, his scouts had watched this world. They had learned everything about the strange creatures that lived there. The humans were weak. This much was clear. Kethvar turned to face the 12 representatives of the Hegemony Council. Each alien species had sent their best military minds to witness this moment. The conquest of Earth would be their greatest victory yet. "Look at them," Kethvar said, pointing at the screen. "They fight each other constantly. Their wars never end. They waste their resources on weapons to kill their own kind." The council members nodded. They had seen the reports. Humans spent more money on military equipment than on feeding their own children. They destroyed their own forests and poisoned their own water. These creatures could not even work together on their own planet. "Their technology is primitive," continued the admiral. "They still burn fossil fuels. Their computers are slow. Their weapons are crude. They have barely left their own solar system." A younger alien officer from the Zealith species raised his hand. "Admiral, what about their nuclear weapons? Our probes detected thousands of them." Kethvar laughed. The sound was like metal scraping against stone. "Nuclear weapons? We used those toys 1,000 years ago. One shot from our plasma cannons can destroy their entire cities. Their missiles move like insects compared to our ships." The holographic display changed to show Earth's military forces. Tanks rolled across deserts. Ships sailed across oceans. Aircraft flew through the atmosphere. All of it looked so slow and clumsy to the advanced aliens. "They have no space defense," Kethvar explained. "A few small stations orbit their planet. Some satellites for communication. Nothing that could threaten even our smallest warship." The Hegemony had conquered 47 worlds. Each time, they had studied their enemy carefully. Each time, victory had come quickly and completely. Earth would be no different. The admiral activated another display. This one showed the human governments. Hundreds of different countries covered the planet's surface. Each had its own leaders, its own laws, its own military forces. "They cannot work together," Kethvar said. "When we attack, they will argue about who should lead the defense. They will hide information from each other. They will protect their own borders, while their neighbors burn." The council members had seen this pattern before. Divided species always fell quickly. Unity was strength. Division was death. "What about their population?" asked another council member. "They are numerous. Numbers mean nothing without organization," Kethvar replied. "Ants are numerous, but they pose no threat to us. These humans are soft. They have lived too long in peace. They do not know real war." The display showed scenes from human history, ancient battles with swords and spears, more recent conflicts with guns and bombs. The aliens watched humans killing humans with growing satisfaction. "They fight like animals," observed a Vorthak general. "No strategy, no coordination. Pure emotion and rage." Kethvar nodded. "This is why they will lose. Real warfare requires cold logic. It requires species-wide planning. It requires technology they cannot imagine." The admiral called up the invasion plan. Red arrows showed how hegemony fleets would surround Earth. Blue markers indicated key targets for the first strike. Green zones marked areas for resource extraction after conquest. Phase 1. We destroy their orbital installations. This will take perhaps 1 hour. Phase 2. We eliminate their military command centers. Another 2 hours at most. Phase 3. We demonstrate our power by destroying several empty cities. This will break their will to resist. Phase 4. They surrender unconditionally. Phase. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. The hegemony had used variations of it 47 times before. It had never failed. "Their governments will compete to surrender first," Kethvar predicted. "Each will hope to receive better treatment than their rivals. They will turn against each other instead of fighting us." The youngest member of the council, A female from the Keth species looked uncertain. "Admiral, what if we are wrong? What if they have hidden capabilities?" The entire council turned to stare at her. Kethvar's expression darkened. "Hidden capabilities?" he repeated. "They broadcast their television signals into space without encryption. They share their scientific discoveries openly. They publish their military strategies in books for anyone to read. These creatures have no secrets. But perhaps their chaos is a form of strength." The young alien continued. "Perhaps their diversity makes them adaptable." Quote, Kethvar activated one final display. It showed human cities burning from natural disasters. It showed refugees fleeing from wars. It showed governments collapsing under economic pressure. "Does this look like strength to you?" he demanded. "They cannot handle the problems they create for themselves. How could they possibly handle us?" The council voted unanimously for immediate invasion. Within one day, 300 hegemony warships would jump to Earth's solar system. Within 1 week, Earth would belong to the hegemony. As the meeting ended, Kethvar remained alone on the command deck. He looked once more at the planet that would make him famous throughout the galaxy. Earth would be his greatest trophy. The humans would become perfect slaves. Numerous enough to be useful, weak enough to be controlled. The Admiral opened a communication channel to all human governments on Earth. He had practiced this speech in their primitive language. "People of Earth," his voice boomed across every radio and television on the planet. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Vorthak hegemony. We have watched you for 3 years. We have decided to add your world to our empire." The message continued, explaining how resistance was futile, how their weapons could not harm hegemony ships, how their governments would fall in hours. "You have 7 of your days to surrender completely. If you resist, you will all die. If you submit, most of you will live as workers in our mines and factories." To demonstrate their power, Kethvar ordered one of his ships to destroy a large asteroid near Earth. The plasma beam turned rock into vapor in seconds. Every telescope on Earth recorded the display. As the communication ended, Kethvar smiled with satisfaction. Fear would spread across Earth like a plague. By tomorrow, their governments would be calling each other, trying to arrange the surrender. But the Admiral had made one critical error in his planning. He had studied human weakness without understanding human strength. He had learned about human division without recognizing human potential. Most importantly, he had just done something that no human enemy had ever accomplished in all their violent history. He had given them a reason to unite. The first 48 hours after Admiral Kethvar's message were chaos. Stock markets crashed around the world. Millions of people fled from major cities. Governments held emergency meetings behind closed doors. But on the 3rd day, something happened that no alien scout had ever seen before in human history. They began to work together. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the Emergency Assembly Hall of the United Nations. Around her sat representatives from every nation on Earth. They were not arguing. They were not blaming each other. They were planning. "The asteroid demonstration showed us their weapon capabilities," Elena explained to the crowd. "But it also gave us samples of their technology to study." 3 days earlier, Elena had been a quantum physicist working on theoretical research. Now she was leading a team of the world's greatest scientists. Their mission was simple: understand alien technology before the aliens arrived. "We recovered metal fragments from the asteroid destruction," she continued. "The composition is unlike anything we have ever seen. But more importantly, it reacts to human brainwaves." The assembly hall fell silent. This was news to most of the representatives. When Dr. Chen in Beijing first touched a fragment, it began to glow. When Dr. Williams in London concentrated on another piece, it changed shape. The alien technology seems designed to work with conscious thought. General Marcus Chen, no relation to the Chinese scientist, stood up from the military section. "What does this mean for our defense?" Elena looked directly at him. "It means we might be able to turn their own weapons against them. But we need time." Time was something they did not have much of. The aliens had given Earth 7 days to surrender. 4 of those days had already passed, but humanity was moving faster than it had ever moved before. In Moscow, weapons factories that had built tanks for decades were now producing parts for spacecraft. In Tokyo, electronics companies worked around the clock to reverse engineer alien communication systems. In Cape Town, mining operations had been converted to create underground command centers. The most remarkable change was happening in space. Every satellite around Earth was being modified. Space stations that had been used for research were now becoming weapons platforms. Even the International Space Station had been equipped with experimental plasma cannons built from alien technology. Dr. Vasquez worked 18-hour days in her new laboratory beneath the Swiss mountains. Her team had grown to include scientists from every nation. Language barriers meant nothing now. When a Russian physicist made a discovery, a Brazilian engineer immediately understood how to apply it. The alien metal responds to neural activity, reported Dr. Kim from Seoul. But not just any neural activity. It responds to specific thought patterns. What kind of patterns? Elena asked. Combat patterns, tactical thinking, problem-solving under pressure. The more stress a person feels, the stronger the response. This discovery changed everything. The alien technology was not just advanced, it was designed for warfare. But somehow, human brains could interface with it. Captain Sarah Morrison was among the first to test this theory. The former Air Force pilot had volunteered for dangerous experiments with recovered alien equipment. When she placed her hands on an alien control panel, the entire device came to life. It's like it's speaking to me, she reported. I can understand what each control does without anyone explaining it. Within hours, similar reports came from around the world. Fighter pilots, soldiers, even video game players could operate alien technology intuitively. The more military training a person had, the stronger their connection became. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Dr. Martinez in Mexico City was studying human test subjects who had been exposed to radiation from the asteroid fragments. What he found defied everything science understood about human biology. Their DNA is changing, he reported in an emergency video call. Not randomly, deliberately. The radiation is causing controlled mutations. Elena felt her heart racing. What kind of changes? Enhanced reflexes, improved memory, faster healing. And something else. Their brain activity is becoming synchronized with other test subjects. The implications were staggering. The alien demonstration had not just shown Earth their power, it had accidentally begun changing the human species itself. General Chen was coordinating the global military response from a command center in Colorado. Every screen around him showed preparations for war. But these were not the divided, competing forces that the aliens had observed. American submarines shared their positions with Russian destroyers. Chinese satellites provided targeting data to European aircraft. African nations opened their airspace to military flights from every continent. Status report. General Chen ordered. The moon base is operational, sir. Solar system defense grid is at 60% completion. All nuclear arsenals have been placed under unified command. But the most important development was happening far from Earth. Human ships, hastily constructed from alien technology and Earth resources, were already moving toward the outer planets. These were not exploration vessels or research ships, they were warships. Captain Morrison commanded one of the first hybrid vessels. Her crew came from 12 different nations, but they worked together like they had trained for years. The alien technology seemed to help them communicate without words. The ship responds to our intentions, she reported to Earth. When we want to go faster, it goes faster. When we prepare for combat, weapons systems activate automatically. Meanwhile, the aliens continued their approach, confident in their superiority. Admiral Kethvar received regular reports from his scouts. But these reports were 3 days old by the time they reached him. The speed of light made real-time surveillance impossible across interstellar distances. The Admiral reviewed what his scouts had observed. Human governments appeared to be in chaos. Millions of refugees clogged the roads. Military forces seemed scattered and confused. Exactly as predicted, Kethvar told his officers. By the time we arrive, they will be begging to surrender. But the Admiral's intelligence was wrong. The chaos he saw was not panic. It was the largest mobilization in human history. The refugees were not fleeing randomly. They were moving to predetermined safe zones. The scattered military forces were not confused. They were taking positions for the greatest defensive operation ever attempted. Most importantly, the aliens could not detect the changes happening inside human beings themselves. Their scanners showed the same biological signatures they had observed for 3 years. They could not see that human DNA was rewriting itself. They could not measure the growing mental connections between individuals. Dr. Vasquez made the final breakthrough on the 6th day. She and her team had been working without sleep, fueled by stimulants and determination. The alien technology was more than just advanced machinery. It's designed to interface with evolved nervous systems, she announced to the global leadership. The aliens who built this technology were once like us, individual creatures who learned to think together. The implications struck everyone at once. Humanity was not just defending against invasion. They were evolving into something new. The alien attack was accelerating a natural process that might have taken thousands of years. On the 7th day, Admiral Kethvar's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. He expected to find a broken planet, ready to surrender. Instead, he found something that would haunt his nightmares for the rest of his life. Humanity had awakened, and they were ready for war. Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet of 300 warships had just entered Earth's solar system. According to his plans, this should have been a simple sweep toward the planet. Instead, his sensors were showing impossible readings. "Admiral," his weapons officer reported, "we are detecting massive energy signatures near Jupiter." "Jupiter?" Kethvar moved closer to the screen. "That is just a gas planet. There should be nothing there but research stations." But the display showed something that made his blood freeze. Orbiting Jupiter were dozens of structures that definitely were not research stations. They were fortress platforms, each one bristling with weapons that his computers recognized as hegemony plasma technology. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our weapons technology is classified at the highest levels." His science officer ran quick scans of the structures. "Sir, they appear to be built from our own technology, but modified. The power output is 40% higher than our standard plasma cannons." Before Kethvar could process this information, his ship's alarms began screaming. The Jupiter defense grid had opened fire. Beams of supercharged plasma lanced across space toward the hegemony fleet. The first volley struck 5 ships before their shields could activate. The alien vessels, designed to face primitive nuclear weapons, crumpled under the impact of their own technology turned against them. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Kethvar shouted. "Return fire." But the human defenders were not fighting like any enemy the hegemony had ever faced. Instead of holding position like proper fortress defenders, they were moving. The orbital platforms shifted and danced around Jupiter's gravity well, making targeting nearly impossible. Captain Sarah Morrison commanded Platform 7 of the Jupiter defense grid. Her crew of 20 humans worked in perfect synchronization. They did not need to communicate with words. Each person somehow knew what the others were thinking. "Incoming missile barrage," announced her tactical officer, Lieutenant Chen. But Sarah had already known this. She had felt it through the strange connection that linked all human defenders. "Adjusting orbit," she replied. But her hands were already moving the controls before she spoke. The platform slid smoothly behind one of Jupiter's moons just as alien missiles arrived at their previous position. All across the defense grid, human platforms performed similar maneuvers. To Admiral Kethvar, it looked like the humans were reading his mind. Every tactical decision he made seemed to be anticipated moments before he implemented it. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "I'm detecting some kind of network signal between the human platforms, but it's not using any communication technology I recognize." Kethvar ignored the report. He had bigger problems. His fleet was being torn apart by weapons that should not exist. In the first hour of combat, he had lost 30 ships. 30 ships destroyed by creatures who were supposed to surrender without firing a shot. "All ships, withdraw to the asteroid belt," he ordered. We need time to analyze their capabilities, but the humans were not going to give him that time. As the hegemony fleet retreated, new contacts appeared on their sensors. Ships were emerging from hiding spots throughout the asteroid belt. But these were not the crude human vessels that Kethvar's scouts had observed. These were sleek, deadly craft that moved like living things. Captain Morrison's sister ship, the Times Defiance Asterisk, was one of the first human warships built from hybrid technology. Commander Torres had volunteered for this mission even though everyone knew it would be suicide. The human ships were fast and clever, but they were also fragile compared to alien dreadnoughts. But Torres had advantages that no hegemony tactical computer could calculate. His crew of 40 humans were linked by the same strange connection that united all of Earth's defenders. They could coordinate attacks without radio signals. They could anticipate enemy movements through shared intuition. Most importantly, they were not afraid to die. Target the alien flagship, Torres announced to his crew. All power to forward weapons. The Times, Defiance Times, accelerated toward Admiral Kethvar's massive command ship. Behind it, 30 more human vessels followed in perfect formation. They moved like a school of fish, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. Kethvar watched the human ships approach with growing alarm. They are heading straight for us. Do they not understand the power difference? His weapons officer targeted the lead human ship and fired. The plasma bolt struck the Times Defiance Times directly. But somehow, the little ship survived. Its hull was glowing with absorbed energy. But it kept coming. Impossible, Kethvar breathed. That shot should have vaporized them. What the Admiral did not know was that human engineers had learned to use alien technology in ways its creators never imagined. The Times Defiance's Times hull was lined with the same energy-absorbing metal that powered hegemony weapons. Instead of being destroyed by the blast, the ship had actually become stronger. Commander Torres felt the power surge through his vessel. Through the mental link, he shared this knowledge with every other human ship in the system. Within seconds, they all understood how to turn enemy fire into fuel for their own weapons. The human fleet struck the hegemony formation like a hammer. Small, fast ships darted between massive alien dreadnoughts, firing at point-blank range before disappearing back into the asteroid field. When alien ships tried to pursue, they found themselves flying into carefully prepared traps. But the most terrifying moment for Admiral Kethvar came when he intercepted human communications. He expected to hear chaos, fear, desperate orders from panicking commanders. Instead, he heard something that chilled him to his core. The humans were not talking to each other at all. They were coordinating their attacks in perfect silence, as if they shared a single mind. When one ship was destroyed, the others immediately adapted their tactics based on what the dying crew had learned. Sir, his science officer reported with a shaking voice, the humans appear to be operating as a collective intelligence. Each individual death makes the group more effective. Kethvar realized he was facing something beyond his understanding. These were not separate ships with separate crews. This was a single entity with many bodies, learning and adapting faster than any individual species could match. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the hegemony fleet had lost nearly 100 ships. The human forces had lost almost every vessel they committed to the fight. But the survivors had gained something more valuable than ships. They had gained knowledge. Every human death had taught the species something new about alien tactics. Every destroyed ship had revealed weaknesses in hegemony technology. Every small victory had been shared instantly across the entire human defense network. Admiral Kethvar retreated to the outer edge of the solar system, his remaining 200 ships forming a defensive formation. For the first time in his long military career, he was afraid. Send a message to Hegemony Command, he ordered. Request immediate reinforcements. Maximum priority. His communications officer looked confused. Sir, what should we tell them about the situation here? Kethvar stared at the tactical display showing Earth's yellow sun. Somewhere in that system, a species they had dismissed as primitive was becoming something unprecedented, something terrifying. Tell them, he said slowly, that we may have awakened something that should have been left sleeping. The message would take weeks to reach hegemony space. By the time reinforcements could arrive, Kethvar suspected it might be too late. The humans were learning too fast, adapting too quickly, but the Admiral had no choice except to wait and hope. Because for the first time in hegemony history, they were not the hunters, they were the prey. 6 months had passed since the first battle at Jupiter. Admiral Kethvar stood in his command center, surrounded by tactical displays that told a story of impossible horror. The hegemony now controlled nothing in the Earth system except the space inside their own ships, and even that was no longer safe. "Report," Kethvar ordered his tactical officer, though he dreaded what he would hear. "We lost another 12 ships in last night's raid, sir. The humans struck our patrol group near Saturn and disappeared before we could respond." Kethvar closed his eyes. He now commanded barely 800 ships, even after reinforcements had arrived from hegemony space. The humans had started with perhaps 50 spacecraft, but their numbers never seemed to decrease. "How is this possible?" he demanded, for the 1,000th time. "We destroy their ships faster than they can build them." His science officer, a young Vorthak named Keltar, looked up from his instruments. "Sir, I believe they are not building new ships in the traditional sense. They appear to be growing them." "Growing them?" "Yes, sir. Our long-range sensors detect structures around Earth and Mars that seem to be alive. They consume asteroids and debris, then produce new vessels at an impossible rate." Kethvar reviewed the sensor data himself. The readings showed structures that pulsed like living hearts, converting raw materials into starships in a matter of days. It was technology beyond anything the hegemony possessed, but the ships themselves were only part of the nightmare. The real horror was the humans who flew them. Captain Torres had died in the 3rd week of fighting, his ship rammed into a hegemony dreadnought in a suicidal attack. But somehow, his knowledge lived on. The human pilots who replaced him flew with his skill and experience, as if his mind had been transferred to their brains. Every human death made the species stronger. Every tactical lesson learned by one fighter was instantly shared with all others. The hegemony was fighting an enemy that became more dangerous with every casualty. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked in her laboratory deep beneath Europa's ice. The facility had been built in the first month of the war, using technology that mixed human engineering with alien science. Now it produced things that would have been called impossible 6 months ago. "The latest batch is ready," announced Dr. Kim, who had become Elena's closest collaborator. 50 volunteers from the Mars colonies. Elena looked through the observation window at the people floating in biotanks. They had volunteered to undergo the adaptation process, a procedure that accelerated the evolutionary changes the alien radiation had begun. When they emerged, they would no longer be entirely human. The adapted could survive in space without suits for short periods. They could interface directly with any technology, human or alien. Most importantly, they remained conscious for several minutes after clinical death, long enough to transmit their final experiences to the collective human network. Admiral Kethvar learned about the adapted during a raid on one of Europa's moons. His boarding parties had cornered a group of human defenders in a sealed compartment. The aliens were preparing to capture them when something impossible happened. The humans opened the airlock, exposing themselves to vacuum. But instead of dying instantly, they continued fighting for 3 full minutes. Even as their bodies shut down, they transmitted targeting information to human ships outside the facility. "They do not die like normal creatures," reported the boarding party leader. "They become more dangerous as they expire." Kethvar realized that humans had weaponized death itself. Every fallen fighter became a source of tactical intelligence. Every destroyed ship provided data for the next attack. The species was turning their own mortality into a strategic advantage. But the true horror was yet to come. After 8 months of fighting, Admiral Kethvar decided to attempt a direct assault on Earth itself. His fleet of 600 ships would overwhelm the planet's defenses through sheer firepower. It was a desperate plan. But the hegemony could not afford a prolonged war against an enemy that grew stronger with time. The fleet approached Earth's moon in battle formation. Kethvar expected to face the usual human tactics: fast ships, suicidal attacks, coordinated swarms. Instead, he found something that defied every principle of warfare he understood. Earth was hunting them, The planet's surface bristled with weapons that moved and tracked their ships across space. But these were not fixed installations operated by human crews. They were living extensions of a single vast intelligence that encompassed the entire world. "Sir," his sensor operator reported in a terrified voice, "the entire planet appears to be aware of us." Kethvar watched his tactical display as thousands of defense platforms rose from Earth's surface. They moved in perfect coordination, like cells in a massive organism. Behind them, the planet itself began to glow with energy that his instruments could not identify. The first wave of plasma fire from Earth's defenses destroyed 40 ships in seconds. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that Kethvar could feel something touching his mind. The collective human intelligence was trying to communicate with him, not through radio or any technology he recognized, but directly through thought. The sensation was like ice water flowing through his brain. Asterisk. "You came to conquer us." Asterisk. The voice said without words. Asterisk. "You have made us more than we were. Do you understand what you have done?" Asterisk. Kethvar tried to break the mental contact, but it was impossible. The human consciousness was showing him images of what Earth had become. Cities where individual humans moved in perfect synchronization, factories that produced weapons faster than thoughts could form, children born already connected to the planetary mind. Asterisk. "We are grateful." Asterisk. The voice continued. Asterisk. "Before you came, we were divided. We fought each other. We wasted our potential. You have taught us to be one." Asterisk. The Admiral's ship shook under plasma fire from a dozen directions. Around him, his fleet was disintegrating under the coordinated assault, but the physical attack was nothing compared to the mental violation he was experiencing. Asterisk. "Your species conquers worlds by making them afraid." Asterisk. The human consciousness observed. Asterisk. "But fear made us evolve. Pressure made us grow. Conflict made us unite. You have created something your galaxy has never seen before." Asterisk. Kethvar managed to gasp out an order to retreat, but half his fleet was already destroyed. The surviving ships fled toward the outer planets, pursued by human vessels that seemed to anticipate their every move. As Earth fell behind them, the mental contact finally broke. But the Admiral knew he would never be free of what he had seen. Humanity had become something beyond individual life, beyond separate consciousness, beyond anything the hegemony could comprehend. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth." The main screen activated, showing a human figure that might have been male or female. It was impossible to tell. The being's eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed to contain the wisdom of billions. "Admiral Kethvar," the figure spoke in perfect Vorthok, "we offer you terms for ending this conflict." Kethvar found his voice. You offer us terms? We came to conquer you." The human smiled, and in that expression the Admiral saw something that made him understand the true scope of his failure. It was not the smile of a victim or even a victor. It was the smile of a parent watching a child take its first steps. "You did not come to conquer us," the being replied. "You came to create us. And now your creation wishes to discuss the future." For the first time in his life, Admiral Kethvar, conqueror of worlds, found himself asking for mercy from the species he had intended to enslave. The transformation of humanity was complete. The war for Earth was over, but the war for the galaxy had just begun. The meeting took place on a neutral space station between Earth and Mars. Admiral Kethvar had expected to face human military leaders, politicians, scientists. Instead, he was greeted by a single figure who spoke for all of humanity. She appeared to be a young woman, perhaps 30 years old in human terms. But her eyes held the depth of billions of minds. When she moved, it was with the precise coordination of a species that had learned to think as one. "I am Elena," she said. Though Kethvar recognized that this was not an individual name anymore. She was Elena Vasquez, the quantum physicist who had first unlocked alien technology. But she was also every other human who had died in the war. She was the collective memory and intelligence of an entire species. You requested terms for peace, Kethvar said, trying to maintain his dignity despite commanding fewer than 300 surviving ships. Elena nodded. We propose immediate withdrawal of all hegemony forces from our solar system. In exchange, we will not pursue your retreating fleet. The terms were almost insultingly simple. Kethvar had expected demands for reparations, territorial concessions, technology transfers. That is all? That is all we require from you, Elena replied. We have learned what we needed to learn. Kethvar felt a chill. What do you mean? Elena gestured to the viewport, where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the darkness. But the Admiral could see that it was no longer the same planet his scouts had observed 3 years ago. The entire surface glowed faintly with energy patterns that his instruments could not analyze. You taught us that we were vulnerable as individuals, Elena explained, so we became more than individuals. You showed us that our technology was primitive, so we evolved beyond technology. You demonstrated that our divisions made us weak, so we became united. As she spoke, Kethvar realized what the humans had truly accomplished. They had not just defended their world, they had transformed themselves into something entirely new. Your species conquers through force, Elena continued. You take worlds by destroying their defenders. But you made a crucial error with us. You gave us time to adapt. Through the station's sensors, Kethvar could see human ships moving throughout the solar system, but they were not patrolling or defending anymore. They were exploring, building, expanding. Already, human outposts stretched from Mercury to Pluto. We are grateful for what you have taught us, Elena said. Before the war, we were bound by our biology. We aged. We died. We forgot. Now we are something more. The Admiral watched in fascination as Elena's form seemed to shift slightly. For a moment, she looked like Dr. Kim, the Korean scientist. Then Captain Morrison, the first pilot to interface with alien technology. Then, dozens of other faces, all the humans who had died and been absorbed into the collective consciousness. You are no longer human, Kethvar observed. We are what humanity becomes, Elena corrected. We are the next step in evolution. And we owe it all to you. The irony was not lost on the Admiral. The hegemony's greatest conquest had become their greatest failure. But worse than failure, it had become something that would haunt the galaxy for generations to come. Elena activated a holographic display that showed the solar system as it existed now. Human settlements covered dozens of moons and asteroids. Massive construction projects created new habitats in the space between planets. Ships that looked more grown than built moved between these outposts in perfect coordination. In 6 months, we will begin expanding beyond this system, Elena announced. We are curious about our galactic neighbors. Kethvar felt his blood freeze. You mean to conquer other worlds? Conquer? Elena seemed genuinely puzzled by the concept. Why would we conquer? We prefer to understand, to learn, to help others evolve as we have evolved. The Admiral realized that this was somehow more terrifying than any threat of conquest. The humans were not interested in destroying other species. They wanted to transform them. The galaxy is not ready for what you have become, he warned. Elena smiled with the wisdom of billions. The galaxy was not ready for what you are, either. Yet here you are, spreading across star systems, taking worlds that do not belong to you. At least we offer our gifts freely. Through the station's communication system, Elena showed Kethvar what was happening on Earth. The planet's surface had been completely transformed. Instead of separate cities and nations, there was now one vast organism that covered continents. Humans moved through this landscape not as individuals, but as cells in a living system. Children were being born who could manipulate matter with their thoughts. Adults worked together to solve problems that would have taken centuries for individual minds to understand. The elderly did not die anymore. Their consciousness simply merged more completely with the collective intelligence. "You created us to be your slaves," Elena said. "Instead, you made us into your successors." Kethvar signed the peace treaty with hands that shook. He had no choice. His remaining fleet could not hope to fight a species that had turned their entire star system into a weapon. As his ship prepared to leave human space forever, the Admiral composed his final report to the Hegemony High Council. It would take weeks for the message to reach them, but he knew it would change everything. "The conquest of Earth has failed," he dictated. "But failure is not the correct term for what has occurred here. We sought to add another world to our empire. Instead, we have awakened something that will reshape the galaxy." The Admiral paused, trying to find words for what he had witnessed. The humans are no longer bound by the limitations of individual flesh or separated thought. They have become what we all feared without knowing we feared it: a truly unified species. Through his ship's sensors, Kethvar could see human vessels following his retreat, not attacking, just observing, learning, preparing for their own expansion into the galaxy. "They do not fight wars as we understand them," the Admiral continued his report. "They become war itself. Every death makes them stronger. Every defeat teaches them victory. They turn conflict into evolution." The Hegemony fleet jumped to hyperspace, fleeing toward their home territories. Behind them, humanity began its expansion into the cosmos. Human ships, powered by technologies that merged biology with quantum physics, spread outward from Earth like seeds from a dying flower. But these seeds carried something more than human colonists. They carried the gift of unity, the promise of evolution, the chance for other species to become more than they had ever imagined. On distant worlds, alien civilizations would soon receive visitors who offered not conquest, but transformation. Species that had warred for millennia would learn to think as one. Planets torn by division would discover unity through shared consciousness. Some would resist, as humanity had once resisted change. But pressure creates evolution. Conflict creates growth. Fear creates adaptation. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Kethvar's final log entry was brief. "We declared war on Earth. We believed we were conquering a primitive species. Instead, we gave birth to the galaxy's future. May whatever gods we worship forgive us for what we have unleashed." Behind him, Earth continued to glow with the light of 10 billion minds thinking as one. Around it, human space expanded like a living thing. Reaching toward distant stars, humanity had learned the greatest lesson of all: that evolution never stops, that consciousness can transcend flesh, and that unity is the ultimate weapon. They had become what no species in galactic history had ever achieved: a collective intelligence vast enough to embrace the cosmos itself. The war for Earth was over. The war for the future of consciousness had just begun, and humanity intended to win it by making everyone else victorious too.